On the Zephyrian colony of Sandar, things were completely bleak. Kregol warriors were so hungry that they killed every defender they could see and were getting ready to eat the helpless citizens. It was clear that they would lose, but then people showed up. A huge fleet of Krogel invaders swarmed over Xandar, and Captain Zorax saw them. The sky was covered with organic ships, their big bodies blocking out the sun. At first glance, it looked like the Kregel was very happy and killed soldier after soldier. It was only a matter of time before the settlement fell. Zorax tried to buy time by fighting the invasion, but the Kregel ships tore through the Valiant's defenses. A huge Kregel mothership came into view. Its weapons that could destroy the world were getting ready to kill the Valiant and the population below. At that moment, Zorax saw them coming up behind him, faraway forms moving at an impossible speed. He got really close and was shocked by what he saw. It was the humans, or mankind's fleet, racing toward Xandar without any care to join the battle. But would they get there on time? And even if they did, they had no chance because the odds were so bad. People were the colony's last chance. Everyone on Xandar would die if they failed. It still looked like there was no way out, but at least the people were crazy enough to try. The main weapon on the huge Kregel mothership was almost fully charged and flashing a scary green light. Once Captain Zorax knew there was no more time, he felt sick to his gut. That was it. That's it. He got ready for the fiery flash of energy that would definitely kill the brave and everyone in the colony below. But there were a number of sudden bright flashes that lit up the space near the brave. Zorax blinked quickly to try to get rid of the spots in his vision. His jaw dropped in shock when he saw what was coming out of the dim light. Out of nowhere, a group of unknown ships with smooth lines and shiny metal showed up. Before Zorax could even figure out what was going on, the mystery ships fired very accurately and strongly at the Krogel. Zorax became more and more amazed as he watched the tactical show as the strange, angular ships easily cut through the Kregel attack force. He had never seen weapons like theirs before. They tore through the Krogel's organic bodies like they were made of paper. As soon as the insectoid ships tried to move, they were blown apart. His comms officer called out, "Sir, we're being hailed by the unknown fleet." Zorax responded, "Put them through." He straightened his uniform and tried to calm down. Who were these people that showed up when things were at their worst? The view screen came to life and showed a man dressed in a clean black and silver outfit. His stance showed that he was sure of himself and in charge. The man with the strong, calm voice said, "This is Admiral Marcus Hawkins of the United Earth Federation. We're here to help. The Kregel troops will be dealt with by my fleet." It made Zorax blink in surprise. Federation of the United Earth. He had never heard of a group like that. And people were a completely unknown species. Where did they come from? Why did they step in? He had a million thoughts going through his head. He was able to answer, "I'm Captain Zorax of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet. Thank you very much for your help, Admiral Hawkins. But I need to know who you are. Why did you come to our aid?" The human admiral's face turned serious. "We've been keeping an eye on the Kregel's rapid growth for a while now. We can't let their hatred and desire to take over more places spread. The United Earth Federation has made up its mind to stand up to their oppression. We can help you fight back." Zorax felt a rush of thankfulness toward these mysterious people, but he was also a little wary. People in the Galactic Union didn't talk to many species from other star systems. This sudden appearance and offer of help from an unknown race with powerful technology was the first of its kind. But there wasn't time to think about those things. The brave shook his plasma. Fire from a Kregel ship hit its side. Zorax turned his attention back to the fight. When human and Zetherian troops worked together, they quickly destroyed the last few Kregel ships. Zorax couldn't help but be amazed at how fast and well the human ships worked as they darted through the battle, their guns carefully destroying Kregel ships. Admiral Hawkins sent out groups of what looked like strike craft, which were small, one-person boats that moved quickly around the big Kregel ships. It was easy for them to destroy the Kregel bodies with the guided projectiles they fired. But it was the humans' big ships that really interested Zorax. They moved with a smooth, elegant, and clearly powerful grace, like animals on the hunt. Their main guns shot focused blasts of plasma that could cut through a Kregel ship from bow to stern with a single shot. The battle quickly changed direction after this deadly attack. 12 terrible cuts were now filling the Kregel mothership's atmosphere, and it started to turn slowly as if it wanted to get away. Zorax got a huge rush of pleasure from seeing the monster ship lurch around drunk, its weapon that could end the world now half melted. The humans' overwhelming technical power and fighting skills quickly broke up the once unbeatable Kregel horde into shattered pieces and fading vapors. The group was saved just in time because it was about to be wiped out. When the last Kragel ship went off the tactical display, Zorak slouched back in his command chair, his heart beating fast. They were still alive. No matter what, the people of Xander would live to see another day, and it was all because of people. But Zorax couldn't get rid of a feeling of dread, even though he felt relieved. Even though this victory looked like a clear win, it felt more like the first shots in a much bigger battle. The Kragel would definitely come back with even more people to get back at them for this loss. Why did people do what they did? Zorak looked at the sleek Federation ships that were floating in space around him. What did this mysterious species really believe? They had such powerful weapons and the will to use them. Time would tell. After beating the Kragels, Captain Zorax met the mysterious Admiral Hawkins on the bridge of the Valiant. The man looked intimidating in his clean suit, and Zorax could see right through his eyes. Hawkins began, "The Captain Zorax." His voice was calm but firm. "I believe it's time for an honest conversation about what's going on." Zorax nodded and waved for Hawkins to follow him to the room just off the bridge where the briefings were being held. They turned to face the Admiral as the door closed behind them. "I can't thank you enough for stepping in at the right time, Admiral," Zorax said with sincerity. "Xander would have lost if you hadn't helped him. But I have to ask, why? What made you decide to get involved in this fight?" Hawkins leaned against the table and looked more serious. "The United Earth Federation has been keeping an eye on the Kragels for a while now. Their attack on Xander was only a small part of a much bigger plan to take over and control the whole galaxy." When the Admiral spoke, Zorax got a chill down his spine. He didn't know how dangerous the Kragel were until now. Hawkins went on, "Captain, we've made advanced technologies. Strong weapons that can move faster than light. Our progress has been kept secret from the rest of the galaxy, though. We didn't want to get too much attention or throw off the balance of power." Zorax made a frown, and he felt uneasy inside. "Why then do you show yourselves now? What do you want this war to give you?" Hawkins didn't move when Zorax looked at him. "It is only their goal to keep the space safe from the Kragel threat. We don't have any secret goals or ulterior motives. We cannot stand by and let the Kragels spread their violence and tyranny without being stopped." Before Zorax could answer, the Valiant was rocked by a blast that made both men trip. As the lights flickered, alarms went off all over the ship. "Report," Zorax yelled into his radio. The second in command told him, "Captain, the Kragel have launched a surprise attack." Her voice was tense. "They want to get on the ship." Hawkins and Zorax gave each other a mean look as they rushed out of the meeting room and back onto the bridge. They found a scene of chaos when they got there. The men and women of the Valiant rushed to their posts as Kragel weapons fire shook the ship. A lot of Kragel boarding craft were attached to the Valiant's body like parasites, which could be seen on the view screen. Zorax felt a strong urge to be angry and brave. These monsters would not be allowed to take his ship. Over the ship's public address system, Zorax told everyone to get ready to push back the limits. "Send me a report of the damage and put all of your power into shields and guns." Admiral Hawkins was already giving orders to his own men next to him. All employees of the Federation must help the Zephyrians defend the brave and push back the Kragel at all costs. As the two crews desperately tried to agree on how to defend, the first Kragel boarders started to break through the Valiant's hulls. Soon gunfire and screams could be heard all through the hallways. Zorath grabbed his sidearm and ran into the fight, with Admiral Hawkins close behind. As they came around a corner, they saw a group of Kragel fighters. The emergency lighting made their kittiness armor shine. As they charged forward, the Kragel let out a series of clicking war cries and stuck out their evil claws. Zorax and Hawkins fired their guns, sending plasma bolts into the crowd that was coming at them. Zorax was shocked to see that the human troops were just as skilled and fierce as the Zephyrians. Their guns hit their targets with an uncanny level of accuracy as they moved. People from Earth and Zephyr fought together to stop the Kragel attack. The Valiant's halls turned into a horrible battlefield, with the broken bodies of both attackers and defenders all over the place. During the fight, as Zorax lost track of time, he only saw the flash of his weapon and the next Kragel in his sights. Admiral Hawkins was moving very quickly next to him, and his plasma gun was killing Kragel warriors very quickly and efficiently. The battle started to turn around after what seemed like forever. The Kragel's progress slowed down and then stopped completely when forces from humans and Zephyrian pushed them back to their boarding craft. The last Kragel attacker was finally killed, and there was a strange silence among the brave. Zorax put down his weapon. He was working hard, and his chest hurt. The people who were still alive started to look at the damage around him. It had cost a lot. Too many of Zorax's crew were lying still on the deck, having been killed by Kragle claws and plasma. The humans had also lost a lot of people while trying to defend the ship. While doctors and damage control teams rushed to help the hurt and look at the damage, Zorax turned to Admiral Hawkins. The man's face was grim and covered in Kragle blood, but his mouth was set with determination. Hawkins said in a low voice, "This is just the beginning. There is nothing the Kragles will not do until they have taken over or destroyed everything in their way." When Zorax nodded, he felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. He understood that Hawkins was right. Mankind and Zephyr would have to work together to beat the Kragle because they were both fighting the same enemy. Zorax knew that this alliance was necessary, but he couldn't get rid of the uneasy feeling that was always there in the back of his thoughts. Yes, the people were strong, and their help had been very helpful. But what did they still keep secret? What other tools and technologies did they have? Things like that would have to wait for now, though. The Brave was safe, and the Kragle threat had been stopped right away. That was enough for now. Zorax put his hand on Admiral Hawkins' shoulder and looked at the person with new respect. "Let's hope that our strength will be enough to get us through the next fights." As the Valiant entered the atmosphere of Sixth, the Kragle's homeworld, it shook. On the bridge, Captain Zorax put his fingers together and gripped the arms of his command chair. Admiral Hawkins stood next to him, determined. He looked at the screen that showed the planet's surface coming in fast. Zorax told everyone on the ship over the wide area communication system to get ready for atmospheric entry. Wait for the gunfire to come. As if on cue, the Kragle anti-aircraft guns opened up on the surface, making the Valiant's shields flare. The ship shook when it hit, but it didn't move. Hawkins told them to fire back, use precise strikes to hit those defense sites. When the Valiant's guns answered, they sent out beams of concentrated energy. On the surface, Kragle gun positions disappeared like flame flowers. Zorax's heart was racing as he watched the tactical show. The Kragle's main station was a huge defense system that covered a lot of ground. Scientists sent out human spies and found evidence that the Kragle Queen was deep inside the complex, leading her forces. The Kragle trio might be over if they could get rid of her. The helmsman said that they were now entering low atmosphere, getting ready to land. Once more, the Valiant shook as it moved through the thickest parts of Zixoth's atmosphere. A small group of human ships joined the ship. The orange light from the planet's star made their smooth bodies shine. From her station, a human officer told Admiral, "Our ground forces are ready to deploy." Hawkins said yes. "Good job. Get them to line up in the main hangar bay with the Zephyri troops. We'll do everything we can to hit the Kragle base." Zorax got up and took his plasma gun out of its holster. "I'll personally lead the ground attack," he said. "It's my job to protect them." Hawkins looked him in the eyes with trust in his heart. It was simple. "As will I." When the two leaders got to the hangar bay, they were met by a group of elite Zephyrian and human troops. The people were wearing high-tech exoskeletons for battle that were loaded with weapons. The Zephyrians, on the other hand, wore more traditional armor, but they all carried a deadly plasma blade as a sign of their military culture. Zorax was filled with pride as he looked around at the gathered troops. These were the best people, chosen by hand for this very important task. He yelled, "Listen up," and his voice echoed through the hangar. "We are going to attack the Kragle, which is where they live. It's not going to be easy, but I know you will all fight bravely and with honor. Remember what you learned in class and watch out for each other. We'll all make it home safely." As a show of unity, the troops yelled yes and slammed their fists against their chest plates. As the main ramp of the Valiant slid down with a hiss, the war-torn scenery of Sixth came into view. The Kragle base was a dark mark on the sky that could be seen from afar. Hawkins told the strike force to move out, and they did so with their guns ready. They were shot at almost right away by Kragle's guards. As plasma bolts shot through the air, the Zephyrians and humans had to hide behind the burning wreckage of Kragle cars. Coming out from behind a bent piece of metal, Zorax fired a few shots from his gun. Over next to him, Hawkins was calmly and precisely leading his troops while his own plasma rifle barked. Zorax yelled over the noise of the fight, "Push forward. We need to get past their main protection." The strike force moved up and jumped from one cover to the next. The human troops' exoskeletons were very helpful. They made them stronger and faster, which made it easy for them to move over the broken ground. As they got closer to the base's outer walls, a new threat showed up. Huge chitinous creatures erupt from the ground and make screeches that can split your ears. These were bioengineered monsters made by the Kragles. They were live weapons they bred to fight. Zorax was scared for a moment when he saw the creature's very sharp claws and bloody teeth, but he pushed the fear aside and raised his plasma blade. He yelled, "Stand firm. Get these horrible things taken down." The Zephyrians charged at the creatures, their plasma blades flashing as they did so. The humans, meanwhile, used their energy guns to fire concentrated fire at the monsters, cutting through their thick shells. It turned out that Zorax and Hawkins were fighting together. The two leaders formed an island of defiance in the middle of all the chaos. Hawkins moved smoothly, and his armor helped his reflexes, so he was able to avoid the creatures' attacks and weave through them. Zorax, on the other hand, cut and hacked with his plasma blade. The very hot edge cut through bone and carapace. As the last of the creatures shook and fell to the ground, Zorax looked up at Hawkins. They looked at each other with understanding and saw how skilled and brave the other was. There was no time to rest, though. The outside wall of the base loomed over them, a strong wall full of automated weapons. Hawkins told them to bring up the heavy guns. "We need to make a gap in that wall." Soldiers from Earth raised huge plasma guns and aimed them at the Kragul defenses. When they let go, there were a number of loud blasts, and the superheated bolts hit the wall with great force. Because of the constant bombardment, the wall fell apart, creating a hole. Zorax moved his sword forward and raised it. He yelled, "Charge!" and the strike force rushed through the opening and into the Kragul base like a wave. Inside, the fighting was very close and very bad. Warriors of the Kragul came at them from all sides, their claws and plasma guns flashing. But both the Zephyrians and the humans fought with a resolve that came from Mead. They killed their enemies quickly and cruelly. Zorax got caught up in the beat of the battle, and his blade was all over the place. He could feel himself getting tired, and his muscles were burning from working out, but he kept going. They had to get to the Queen. Hawkins was a natural force next to him. His exoskeleton made him stronger and let him crush Kragul fighters like a juggernaut. When he fired his energy guns, each one hit its target perfectly, killing it. The strike force moved deeper into the base one step at a time, leaving a path of dead Kroguls behind them. They finally got to the center of the complex, which was a huge room filled with sickly green light. Then they saw the Kragul Queen, who was very tall. She looked horrible because her swollen body was held up by many chitinous arms. On top of her huge head were a bunch of twisted sensory organs, and each one was glowing with evil intelligence. As soon as the strike force walked into the room, the Queen let out a psychic screech that hurt Zorax deeply. He stumbled and tried hard to stay on his feet. Around him, both Zephyrian and human troops were shaking and clutching their heads. Some of them fell to their knees in pain. Hawkins, on the other hand, pushed forward with his energy guns on full blast. Even human weapons couldn't hurt the Queen's tough hide. Hawkins, however, kept fire, and his bullets slowly wore away at her shell. Now that Zorax saw his chance, he jumped forward with his plasma blade raised high. He raised his sword in a war cry and cut deep into the Queen's flesh with it. The Queen let out a horrifying scream and slashed out with her claws, but Zorax was ready, dodging and moving as he kept attacking. While this was going on, Hawkins had climbed up the Queen's chitinous skin with pure purpose. As he got close to her head, he put the trigger on his gun and pushed it into one of her throbbing organs. The Queen was shaking violently, and her psychic scream was getting louder. With a shudder, her huge body fell to the floor of the room. Zorax stood there breathing, his plasma blade still stuck in the Queen's body. He looked at Hawkins as the person got off of the Queen's body, his gun still smoking. "Is the fight over?" Zorax didn't even dare to hope when he asked. The Queen woke up before Hawkins could answer. She looked at the two leaders with eyes the size of men's heads, wide open and filled with hate. "Fools," she hissed, and her voice was rough from pain. "You believe that your win here is important. You have no idea what's going to happen." Zorax and Hawkins looked at each other with puzzled eyes. "What do you want to say?" Hawkins asked for it. The Queen let out a rattling laugh, and ichor poured out of her mouth. She whispered, "The storm is coming for you all. It is the great devourer that ate our world." Zorax got a chill up his spine. "What's the storm?" he pushed. "Describe yourself." The Queen's eyes started to get cloudy, and she started to lose her strength. There was a whisper in her voice that said, "We ran away. Run away from the disaster that destroyed our home world and the hunger that scored the stars. Now that we are dying, we have led it right to you." The Queen let out one last shiver and fell still, her eyes losing their light. Both Zorax and Hawkins were shocked and silent, with the Queen's mysterious words still fresh in their minds. Around them, the Zephyrian and human troops who were still alive started to get back together, helping the hurt and making sure the chamber was safe. But even as they told each other they had won, they felt uneasy. The Queen's last statement brought up a whole new set of questions. each one more troubling than the last. What was this terrible event she talked about? What was making the Kregel homeworld so hungry? What scared them the most was whether it was now going for them. When Zorax looked into Hawken's eyes, he saw the same grim purpose. Even though they won the fight, it looked like the war was still going on. Kregels were no longer a threat, but there was a new mystery on the horizon. This one could affect not only Xander or the Galactic Alliance, but also the whole world. All over the galaxy, word spread quickly that the Kregel Queen had been defeated. The Galactic Alliance and the United Earth Federation acted quickly to take advantage of the chance. They launched a coordinated attack to push back the Kregel forces and take back the worlds they had taken. Zorax stood on the Valiant's bridge and watched as news came in from all over the world. Without their queen's telepathic direction, the Kregel were in chaos, and their once powerful armies were now spread out and open to attack. From system to system, Alliance and human ships chased them and freed planet after world. It looked for a moment like the end of the war, a chance to stop all the killing and damage that the Kregel had caused. On the other hand, Zorax heard rumors of something that made his blood run cold on the comms. One voice said, they were running away. They were running away from something that had destroyed their homeworld. Somebody else said we should just let them go. They don't deserve any peace after what they'd done. It got very hot among the Alliance leaders when the Kregel Queen told them what she knew. Some people, moved by the thought of a whole species going extinct, claimed that the Kregel should be helped and shown mercy. They said they were smart beings. Do we have the right to put them to death, no matter what they did wrong? But some people, like Admiral Hawkins, were not as forgiving. They killed billions and enslaved whole worlds. He growled during a particularly heated argument. Their sins can't be forgiven. Zorax felt torn inside. Part of him burned with vengeance against the Kregel for all the lives they had taken. On the other hand, the part that had seen too much death and pain shuddered at the thought of eradicating a species. Didn't they set out to avoid a disaster? When did they start selling it? Zorax threw himself into the war effort as the argument went on, hoping to forget himself in the fighting. But even as the Alliance forces wiped out the last of the Kregel Empire's enemies, he couldn't get rid of the questions that were haunting him. People were still a mystery, even with all their help. They had technology and skills that were far beyond what the Galactic Alliance had seen before. Even though they said they were friends, Zorax couldn't shake the feeling that they had a bigger plan than they were telling him. He became even more suspicious when he heard that human ships were leaving the main fleet to do secret tasks in Kregel space. When asked about the worries, Admiral Hawkins said they didn't apply because they were about classified actions and people who needed to know. But Zorax knew something bad was going to happen. He could feel the strain in the air. There was a hesitation that couldn't mean the end of a war that had been won a long time ago. So he looked for answers in the stories that troops told each other. What he heard shook him to his core. A warning of an even worse horror that drove its killers to commit mass murder. A warning that was ignored in the excitement of victory. The world was free, though, and quickly began to rebuild. The galaxy was at peace again, but Zorax saw doubts start to appear. Those doubts and fears grew along with the whispers he watched. He saw how humans changed their positions and how people who used to be friends turned away from them. And as the weeks went by, fear grew in his heart. Peace would soon be a fond memory because someone put that feeling into words and deeds. That person showed up while people on Xander were celebrating their win. A veteran and fellow Zephyrian stood in front of a group of people in front of a makeshift tribute for those who had died in battle. He called himself Draven, and what he said was both sweet and sour. He began, "And we stand here today in the light of victory," and his voice echoed through the crowd. A victory bought with the blood of our brothers and sisters, a victory that should have been ours long ago. Zorax stayed out of the way and watched. As Draven spoke, he felt uneasy inside. The Kregel have been pushed back and their queen has been killed, Draven said, but they still keep trying. They still hold on to life like the pests they are. At this point, some of our leaders want to be kind to them and help the very creatures that tried to kill us off. There was a mutter in the crowd. Zorax saw people nodding their heads and could see rage and resentment building in their eyes. "I'm done." Draven yelled out loud, "Stop taking shortcuts and being weak. We need to get rid of the Kregel for good. Their empire is destroyed, and their forces are broken up. Let's strike now before their evil can grow again. Let's burn out its roots." There were cheers from the crowd. Zorax got a chill up his spine. He had been afraid of this spark, this ember that could set the galaxy on fire again. The word from Draven quickly spread in the days that followed. More and more people in the Galactic Alliance joined him because they were fed up with their leader's weakness and indecision. They called for a final answer, to get rid of all Kragool in the galaxy. Zorax was right in the middle of the problem as it was getting worse. There was a fight between his morals and his sense of duty. He was aware that Kragool had done terrible things that could not be forgotten, but the thought of killing off an entire species through slaughter made him sick to his stomach. Then there were the people. The fact that Admiral Hawkins had not said anything about the Krogool's fate stood out. When asked, he only said that the United Earth Federation would agree with the Galaxy Alliance's choice, but Zorax couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it than that. He thought about the covert missions and top-secret activities that people had been doing. What did they do? What did they hide? Zorax knew he had to do something as the political scene around him changed and broke up. He couldn't let Draven and his followers start a new war in the galaxy. He couldn't let the partnership fall apart. But he also couldn't ignore the doubts and questions that were burning in his mind about the humans and what they really wanted. He needed to know what was going on, and soon. There was a lot at stake for the galaxy. The story is now over. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you like this story and want to help me out. If someone says, "I liked the story," I will heart every single one of them. Thanks for your time.